When money dies, people run to Bitcoin, gold, or just run. Have you ever seen someone try to fit $1 million into their wallet? Probably not. Unless you were in Venezuela around 2018, then you may have seen this. Welcome to my channel. Today, we're answering the extraordinary. What if someone handed you $1 million and told you it was you and even enough to buy a loaf of bread? How much is one loaf of bread anyway? First up, the basics. Where does all this money come from? Let's rewind a bit to before 2008. Back then, Venezuela was the richest country in South America, thanks to huge oil reserves. But that wealth didn't trickle down to ordinary people. And as the years went by, the government started spending more than it earned, taking out loans and printing more money to make up the difference. Well, printing money isn't free. It costs the country more and more in interest payments. So they started printing even more money to cover those interest payments. Inflation spun out of control, and the whole country descended into chaos. In 2018, Venezuela's inflation rate hit 1,000,000%, which means that prices doubled 1,000 times in just 1 year. The currency, called the bolivar, crashed so hard that it went from being worth about $6.20 to less than a penny. Imagine your salary today is $40,000. In 2 years, it could be $80,000. But in Venezuela, it would only be worth $400. This is what hyperinflation looks like. People needed to carry around wheelbarrows of cash for basic goods and services. Sometimes they had to weigh the stacks of money rather than counting it. For a little while, prices changed every few hours. When the inflation rate is only 1 or 2%, you might not notice the changes too much day to day. But when it's 1,000%, everything changes every day, and you can't keep up. Even billionaires couldn't handle the amount of money needed to buy anything. One businessman said he kept $200 million in his office safe, opened it, took out a couple thousand bills to buy lunch, and returned to find the cash wasn't even enough to buy him a sandwich. A team has stopped working because there wasn't enough space on the screen to print all the digits of the constantly changing account balances. It got so bad that the government had to issue new currency 3 times in 10 years. They cut off zeros until the numbers on the bills seemed more reasonable. But this isn't some distant third world country. It's Venezuela, the country with the largest oil reserves on earth. So how did things get so out of control? Well, let's start at the beginning. Before 2008, Venezuela's currency was relatively stable. It took 218 bolivars to buy $1. But after 2008, the government borrowed more and more money, much of it from China, leading to an explosion of debt. Instead of paying off that debt, the Venezuelan government continued borrowing more money, creating a vicious cycle of debt, money printing, and inflation. By 2017, inflation was up to 400%. People needed to carry around wheelbarrows of cash for basic goods and services. Eventually, people couldn't even pay for small purchases with cash. In January 2019, the government introduced a new currency, removing 6 zeros from the old notes. Soon after, they removed 3 more zeros. At the height of the crisis, people needed to carry around wheelbarrows of cash for basic goods and services. People who saved their life savings for retirement watched those nest eggs evaporate into thin air. Anyone who earned a salary found themselves working from January to June for free. The currency was now so unstable that people couldn't trust it to stay in their bank accounts. So many Venezuelans pulled their money out of the banks, traded it for dollars or euros, and hid it in their homes. But why should you care about Venezuela? After all, it's not your country. You don't know anyone there. And it's not like any country today is issuing bills with 100,000% on them. Or are they? Well, Venezuela's economy is collapsing for several reasons, but money printing is the main one. If the government keeps printing more and more money, eventually something has to give. In Turkey, for example, inflation is about to reach 100%. The currency is losing value every day. People need to carry around wheelbarrows of cash for basic goods and services. Could it happen elsewhere? Hell yeah. It's happening elsewhere. Money printing plus debt plus political instability equals danger. The big question is, where else could this happen? Let's look at a few countries that might be heading in the same direction as Venezuela. Lebanon is in a bad way right now. The government is deeply in debt, and the currency has lost most of its value. Things could get worse if the government prints more money to try to fix the problem. Argentina has defaulted on its debt several times, and inflation has reached 1. If the government doesn't get a grip on the situation, things could get much worse. Venezuela was once a rich country with plenty of oil, but now it's poor and broke. That's the warning sign for other governments around the world. Will Venezuela recover? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, the country will never be the same again. Now watch what happens when an economy completely collapses, or check out this video instead.